Welcome back to Real Builds. As you can see, project off the shelves on the ground. Doesn't look too bad. Right now we're waiting to get the battery charged back up, and while I was doing that I opened up another can of worms. So you'll see the car is in a completely different position. The shop's been cleaned, tools put away, made a whole bunch of room. That's because we got some challenges with the body. Now, I figured I'd done all the checking I needed to do to avoid a problem with the bodywork. As you can see on this side, there's a little bit of rust in this rocker, and as we were talking about, it's essentially a surface. The structure behind's okay, and the little marked points, just over here and down in the lower quarter, they're cosmetic. And the goal with this car is to get it up and running as fast as possible, looking decent, but not a restoration by any stretch, just making it a presentable piece that I could hustle down the road. We've been making pretty good headway on that. We'll do a summary here in the near future. And we've been through the suspension and the brakes, and we've put in an engine that's been checked out, not rebuilt, but checked through. Transaxles in, all the fluids are in. It's ready to fire except for the battery. So while I was waiting to bring the battery up slowly, I started digging. And I'm kind of disappointed with what I found. See, before we started, and even when it was still in the air, I started checking things to make sure we wouldn't run into problems. So let me show you what I mean. When you've got rust in rocker panels on a modern car, especially a small one, and particularly a convertible, the rocker panels are a big deal. This whole section through here and the structure behind it is essentially the frame of the car. So when you see a little bit of rust like this, you get nervous, okay? Because this is body structure, just like the rad sport was up front. So before we started, I did some things like check the door gaps. They were consistent. The other side's a little bit wonkier, but it's consistent. And then, using straight edge and the level, check to make sure that when the car overall was level, these were in good shape, the gaps were good, measured these gaps, both sides, all looked pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. So the final test was, while we had it in the air, when I was taking it off the jack stands, we did it again. Opened the doors, checked, measured underneath the level, measured underneath the straight edge to make sure the car wasn't crushing itself. So I was pretty comfortable that we had some good structure, and this side kind of proves it. You know, there's this outside skin rust, which is a real piss off, but it's dealable. You can patch it up, make it look good for now till we come back to the car later as another project. But the other side, we kind of got broadsided. So having to take the position that we need to deal with this now before we get it started up. Now, it wasn't the original plan. I didn't think it was that bad. But I started on the other side and got some rude surprises. So let's take a look. Now on this side, the door gap had never been as good as on the driver's side. Not from the day we bought it. And that's not uncommon with convertibles. It's just not something you like to see. So we did the same thing on this side. You'll notice both doors open, flows really well, no problems. We used the square and the level to check everything. Then when we were taking it off the jack stand, lowering one end from the other, we did it again while all the weight was hanging in the wrong places. Everything came up really good. Wasn't real worried about it. Thought this was just like the other side, basically cosmetic. Unfortunately, the other night while I was waiting for the battery to charge, I started doing a little itty bits on the car. And got a surprise, because when I started digging here, we found damage rust damage on the inner structure. We also found a really botched repair. Now, how bad is it? That's what came out of that corner. So this has to be dealt with now. Because if we can't deal with it, in my mind, even though it measures out good, even though there's no apparent flex, this is a structural problem. And we have to deal with it because even though it might be okay to drive, it's a weak point if it got hit. And I'm just not the kind of guy who can live with that. I want it to be right. So we're going to have to do a much more serious repair here. I'm not a great body man on my best day. So this is going to be a challenge to do it inexpensively and with the skills and the tools I have on hand. It's probably not going to be pretty, but we're going to hide it. But much like the rad support, it's got to be strong. We got to put the structure back in place so this thing is safe to drive. If it gets in an accident, that it's safe. I don't want any problems. So let's take a closer look at what I'm talking about, and then we'll start looking at how we're going to fix it. So here's what I'm worried about. This is the rust through, and as you can see, botched repair. There's Bondo all over the place, and then somebody blew hard rock guard over it. Just bad deal. What we've discovered so far is the metal from back over here on to about here is solid. That's good. And from about here back is good. So we've got structure to work with. The hard part is we got to fix this, and this is on the inside, and it's a bitch to get at. So again, I am not a great body man, but I guess I have to adapt, and we'll get started on it. Now, stuff we're not going to do. Other than the structural repairs and this repair here, which is semi-structural, the rest is just going to be a case of sand, scuff, get rid of the bubbles, and give it a quick paint so it's not ugly. These corners are real soft, and I don't have the time to deal with them right now, but they're non-structural. So we're going to clean them up, put rust converter and preservative on them, give them a squirt so it's a presentable car to drive. Again, the whole goal of this thing is cheap wheels fast, because in these COVID times and being financially strained, I can't afford to go out and buy a car, and I had all the parts lying around. So far we've done really well on that front. So let's talk about that for a second. When we zero in on our mission plan, so far we've been through the engines and systems, and we've been through the suspension, tires, and brakes. I had an extra set of tires kicking around. And we've done part of the body structure with the rad support. Now, what's it cost so far? Well, when I tore the engine apart and checked through it, it was a head gasket and pan gasket kit for a total of about $50, $47 and some cents. Then we bought cleaners and paint and other stuff, which brought us up to right around, I think it was about $75 or $80. Then we had to go out and buy the fluids, the gear lube, the oil, the antifreeze, oil filter, some additional paints, another jug of solvent, and that came to $120 and ran us up to right around $220. And then adding on a little bit more paint, and then getting the transaxle lubricant, which is a bit of an oddball, that put us up to right around $250, $260. So we've been doing pretty good. It's taking longer than I wanted, but we're doing pretty good. So now we're going to get back into the game. We've cleaned up the shop. We've put all the mechanical tools away while we're doing this side of things. And we're going to tackle dealing with the structural issues and a little bit of cosmetic work. So we'll talk to you again soon. You have a lot of fun, and we're diving in. Take care. Okay, we've pretty much worked out a game plan on how we're going to deal with this mess. As you can see, the inner structure is rough. So we've got to replace that with a piece of metal. So we've created a patch panel that's going to go into the structure, more or less like so, and then fold up and around so that it replaces the damaged metal. Then that's going to be stitch welded and screwed into place to do the repair. On the underside, because there's bonded insulation and other things already on the floor and we're so close, what we're going to do is we're going to mechanically fasten, so screws and stuff like that, and use body bonding compound here to seal it up and bond it together. Now that'll create an inner structure repair that will be as strong or damn near as strong as the original. Now farther back on the outside, right over this whole area, we're going to replace that missing material with 16 gauge steel that we've already started to form, and that'll bring the car back to its original strength and make things good. Now on the other side, the job's a lot easier. This business of getting up and down at my age is getting a little silly. So on this side, as you can see, the inner structure is okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to peel away this outer piece. We've already formed a new panel that once that's cut away, we're going to stitch weld it into place. And again, this material, as you can see, is way thicker than the original. So we'll be returning it right back to its original strength and keeping everything in good shape. So that's the plan. Now most of this is nasty, dirty work. So we're just going to stop in once in a while and put together a piece so you can see what we're doing. The other things we're going to be taking care of are little stuff like that. Here, I don't have time to do this properly. We're going to clean it up. We're going to hit it with rust converter and preservative and just put a bond-on patch panel over it so that we can get back to it in the summer because I need the car. And much the same on this side. We do have to do a proper repair here where we'll form a piece and stitch weld it in and then properly finish it off. Here, same problem as the other side. We're simply going to clean it up and hit it with rust converter and other preservatives to keep it in place. A couple other little places like this that we've already cleaned off on this side to make sure we didn't have any disasters to deal with. We're going to finish with body filler, sand, prime, and paint. So we're going to dive into that right now, and we'll pop in from time to time to give you an update. So from Real Builds, we're having a lot of fun. I was not expecting this depth, but you do what you got to do. Take care.